Hi, I'm Greg Sandell. This is a programming challenge I took to write an app against the Spotify Music API, a REST service layer, and a database. I hope you enjoy it.
We're looking here at the instructions for the coding challenge. Usually is a PDF. This is a copy I've made and annotated to sort of act as the guide for this presentation. So let's get right into it, except first I want to show you the code base, which is on GitHub at Spotify track artist. And there is a README, there's install instructions, REST endpoint instructions, env file instructions. We'll touch upon some of those later. Right now, let's go through the requirements. So use a lightweight node framework such as Express. That is indeed what I'm doing. Let's take a quick look at my Express server file. It's just one server file. Um, just a high level view. We've got some endpoints here. Here's a post endpoint and a get endpoint and so on. All right. And now, ideally, we'd like to see an ORM in place to SQLize. For example, yes, I'm using SQLize. Let's go into that a little bit. First of all, the database I'm using is a SQLite database. There it is in my in the DB directory of my project, and we'll take a quick look at that database. So right now it has no tables at all. Eventually, we're going to see a table called track and a table called artist. And I create those tables using SQLize migration files. So this one creates the track file for me. So it has a primary key and then these three fields, which are mentioned in the requirements. And then the artist table has a primary key and it has a name field and track ID, which will actually be a foreign key pointing back to the primary key of track. And you do that in SQLize with a association. So you see that artist model here belongs to the track model, and track model has many artists, and this specifies how track ID and artist relates to the primary key ID in track. So let's go ahead and create those. All I have to do is do npm run migrate, and we'll confirm now that they're in the database. We have tables now, and let's confirm they're just empty. Okay, artist is empty, track is empty. Okay, let's start our server because we're going to need that right away. Uh, okay, it's on port 5000. So let's see what's next here. So, all right, to document the API you're creating, feel free to use Swagger IO. I didn't get around to that, I'm afraid, but I do put, I hope, sufficiently detailed coverage in the README. So here's my REST endpoints. We have 4 different paths. One's a post, the rest are get, and you either have query parameters, and here are the requirements, or body parameters, and there are the requirements there. So I think, let's see, so code challenge details, write access. There should be a single endpoint to trigger for the creation of the track. So yes, that's mine, API/add track, and we're going to run that now in Postman. So what we're going to do, we're going to start, with just this one insert using, oh, where did I put that? Okay, I've got a track by White Stripes here called Seven Stripes Army, and this is its ISRC. So we will be using that. First of all, and here's our two parameters, their body parameters, ISRC and IDX. It's a post, that's why they're body parameters. I'm going to leave ISRC empty. So we're first going to explore how this thing handles mistakes. All right, so first of all, it's telling us that the required ISRC parameter is missing, the wrong type. So let's put one in. Let's make it one that's impossible. There is no such IRC with an A at the end of it. So we'll see what kind of failure that gives us. So it's saying 404 not found, no track found with this ISRC. Oh, and by the way, the previous error was a 400 bad request. And this format here of this message is completely my own approach. I say what the status is, it failed, and then what the message is. If a REST service succeeds, you get a status of success, and then the message will be the actual body that you're expecting back, the actual JSON or JavaScript object that you expect back. So now let's make one that actually works. Okay, send. Okay, it succeeded. There it is, and it's in the database now. We have the track database filled with these three things, and then the artist database filled with these two things. Just this, the name of the band, artist, and already we get to see the relationship between the artist and track that Sequelize gives us. Okay, so one more check on failures. Let's see what happens if we try to add this again. So the requirement said, don't worry about adding a second, re-adding, just ignore it. So what I did is I thought I'd be clever. I used something called a 202 accepted response, which means, yeah, I heard you, but I'm not necessarily going to do anything about what you said. So it says duplicate ISRC, insert ignored. So that will fail kind of silently. And let's see, what's next? Next, we get to do searches on this. So there should be two endpoints to retrieve metadata. So by ISRC, let's check that that one's working. So get search by ISRC. So this one doesn't exist. Actually, for fun, let's just see what happens. So yeah, no track with IS, that one could be found. But if we pasted this white stripes one in here, it will come back. Okay. I won't bother to go in through all the other edge cases. We've seen that enough with the add track API. Let's do a search artist. So, all right, the artist, and it's a substring match, so white should match white stripes. And just to prove that the things aren't being confused with each other, I'll put a substring from the track name, which is 7 something something, I can't remember what. Yeah, there's no artist named 7. All right. And then finally, all right, I added something kind of extracurricular just to make it more interesting to show search results. A search song endpoint. All right, you guys didn't ask for that, but I put it in anyway. So let's search song under the word 7, and we'll find the 7 Nation Army. All right, back to here. So I think I've covered the two reading endpoints. And so I'm not going to just end with that. Let's go deeper into the add track one, because that's the most interesting one, because add track has to go to the Spotify service, get information, and then insert stuff into our local Spotify database. So way we'll explore that is I'm going to stop the server and then restart it in debug mode. Right, I didn't set that up. Let's see. So we need to go npx. All right, hold on. Let's see. npx. Oh, I've got to do several things here. env. This is how the commands end up being passed in to the service. And then I want to say node minus inspect brk, and then source server.js. I hope I did that right. I think I've misspelled something. Yeah, I misspelled the word inspect. All right, it's running. Let's kick off the debugger. Okay, and now let's bring up the server code for the add track. I'm going to put a breakpoint right there so we can step one at a time. And let's trigger it now with the search API. All right, or I mean the add track API. Now we don't want to re-add that. That one's already in the database. So let me go grab one. Uh, I I think it might be the Beatles one. It's one of the examples, you guys. Whatever, yeah, GBay. Let's try that because I don't want to try to re-add white stripes again. So we'll say send, and bam, we're in our debugger. So let's see. So this will be sort of a tour for how I coded this stuff right here. So we'll skip over. Is valid is a way to encapsulate all the things that would tell us if something's wrong with this request. Won't go into detail, but we got to get past that. Um, and yeah, it's a little bit messy, but this thing was done on limited time. So I will go past. That's just the definition of the invalid function. So we'll show that we can pass validity here, and we're going to get, and we do have, here's our RSIC. Now, I haven't explained this IDX here, and I will in a minute. Means index. And we'll go ahead and make that call to Spotify. Actually, I probably should have stepped through that, but here's get track by SRC. We construct the URL based on stuff that's in the env.env. Yeah, it's pretty plain Jane here. We'll go back to stepping through. We are in server. Okay, we have another kind of check here. We have to make sure that let me explain this IDX parameter. The thing is that I wanted to make sure to get some ISRCs that have multiple artists, and I found some. It took some work. Like one stroke of brilliance I thought I had was I chose We Are the World, which has 24 artists on it, the track We Are the World. But the thing is, there's also a requirement in this to sort according to popularity. And what I found, if I sorted according to popularity, I might not get that track that has all those artists on it. So what I did is I'm specifying exactly which IDX I want, which in the case of this one will be IDX 0. But the thing is, with the We Are the World one, it wasn't necessarily the most popular one. It happened to be the first one that had 24 artists. So that's why I need to pass the 0. All right, so we're still debugging. So is viable is just checking, make sure we have, when I specify an index of, let's say if I said 1,000 and there aren't 1,000 available, we'll catch that here and we'll throw an error. So we're gonna get the meta now from Spotify. By the way, let me talk about this. I have a spot util library, and I have a DB util library. Let me go into why I have those two things. So spot util are just things that interact with the Spotify API. In this case, I made it a very simple module, just returns a bunch of exports. And then I reserved all the things that have to do with my database, this Spotify.db thing, put those all in DB util. In this case, I made it an object because it's going to reuse a lot of parameters. So we have a constructor that passes in things. So we have an insert track, insert artist array, artist search, and so on. So I just wanted to cover that for a second. So back to our step through here. All right, so we're actually going to insert the track to the database right there. And this one is the Beatles, Yesterday. Okay, and if we got an ID back, we already know we got an ID back. But if we didn't get an ID back, that meant that there was no such track for that ISRC. So we will pass this test, and then we're going to insert it into the artist array. Okay, and that does a bulk create. So the reason for the bulk create is so if we did hit one of those ISRCs that has multiple artists, it will insert all of those artists. In this case, this Beatles track only has a single artist, so we won't get any more than that. We'll step through, commit. All right, it's saying we're setting the status now to succeeded. Status is 201. We'll see what that is eventually, and we will get to the end of this. And I'm just going to go ahead and finish that. So now we can inspect what happened. By the way, so we got a 201 which is created. So that's a success status that's appropriate for a post. Okay, 201 created. Nice. Okay, so let's run our to search artists. We know we just inserted the Beatles. Let's see if we get some Beatles back. Search artist. Oh, we don't need debugger on anymore. Let's kill this. Let's start the server again without the inspect break. Okay, and the database stays intact between these restarts. The database and the server restarts are unrelated to each other. Let's try that again, searching on the Beatles. Yeah, we got it yesterday, remastered 2009. And for searching on song, Yester, I'll just type in and it'll get a hit on that. All right. So the other thing I wanted to show was what happens if you have more interesting data. And that's why I put in my Sequelize DB folder some seeders. So I've got this huge file which will insert 13 different tracks and then insert, it inserts tracks and artist information for all these. So I mentioned We Are the World. Where is that? It's in here somewhere. We Are the World, right. So it's this one with ID 4, and then when we get to the artist, it goes on and on and on with lots of artists. Okay, so let's go to the terminal. Oh, I'll have to go to a different terminal because that is occupied with that. And so if we go npm run seed, okay, it did that, lickety split. Let's open Sequelize and let's look at artist now. Star from artist. Okay, lots of people in there now. Okay, why did I do this? Well, because I think it makes searching a little more interesting to have the database filled with stuff. Let's see, I know that I have, all right, I Will Always Love You. I've got 2 artists who are doing that. So let's go to search song. Actually, let's make it fun. Let's search on the word love. We're going to get a lot of songs. I think, except my server's not running. Okay, why not just go and run the server? Okay. All right. All right, what do we get back from love? We've got Whitney Houston, I Always Love You. Elvis Presley, Love Me Tender. Linda Ronstadt, Love Me Tender. That must be good. And then for artists, I've got 2 of Lady Gaga. All right, so, I mean, the purpose of showing this, we're showing SQLite in action of doing the join that we want it to do on the track ID primary key and the artist track ID foreign key. And so yeah, we've got two Lady Gagas. We've got Poker Face and Bad Romance. The other one I did two artists for was an Ed Sheeran. We've got Shape of You and Thinking Out Loud. So I think we should be near the end here. What else is covered here? How would you secure your API endpoints? Well, I've done that before. I would use JWT web tokens, which use RSA SHA-256, and you write your methods that support the REST service that they have to have valid and not expired tokens. And usually I do that, in the larger scope of some sort of web application. So the web client would have a sign-in page, and that's actually where you would retrieve the token. And then, if you got a timeout, you'd be redirected back to the sign-in page. And so the REST service would be initiated by the web client, and it would pass the token. And web client would take care of caching it, most likely local storage or as a cookie. And these are the Node.js packages that tend to be used when you're doing this kind of approach to security. And
but I'm going to add just a few more points. Question: why use SQLite as my database? Well, SQLite obviously is a very low effort database. You don't have to stand up a server. There is no running daemon with SQLite. SQLite is just an executable file that gets called whenever you need the database, either to write to or read from. And it manages its own buffering, or whether simultaneous access it's got its own queuing in there, so it can work with multi-threading to a certain degree. And another thing is, I didn't mention how I handled duplicates. I showed that the add track thing successfully rejected a duplicate in kind of a graceful manner, but let me show what it actually does. If we look at the migration for track, I put this in here right here, ISRC unique true, which means we'll throw an exception or throw some sort of error when we attempt to re-enter an ISRC that's already there. And that was handled right. If we didn't get an ID back, usually that's a sign that we did not succeed. In other words, there's a duplicate, and it's handled right there. We call that a success because I told you a 202 is I heard you, but I'm not going to do anything about it message. And I say duplicate ISRC ignored. Okay, what else? So I also didn't mention about the use of tokens. So in my spot util file, I have a nice thing called get token, which calls the Spotify API endpoint for tokens. And I guess this is a good time for you to mention the env file because there's so many environment variables here. So the env file looks like this. Okay, so I'm specifying the absolute path of where my SQLite DB is. Here's my Spotify auth. You can read the README about that. It's too much detail to go into. There are two different Spotify base URLs. There's one for authentication. There's one for all the other services. And then I put in whatever. I've got the port, has 5,000 here. The two services that call Spotify API use the token, and you can see that here. Get tracked by SRC. It should say get token. There it is. Await get token. And then also in get tracked by song, await get token. So, and that's in fact what the instruction said. Just go ahead and retrieve the token over and over again. You don't have to cache it, which is nice. It didn't take extra time. And the last thing, so the the requirements were to sort by popularity, and I already explained that if I sorted by popularity, I might miss out on some tracks that had multiple artists, and I wanted to make sure to get some of those in the database. What I did in the place of that, I figured out the most popular item. I took the image from that most popular item, and that's what I ended up inserting, which is all right. It's kind of breaking the rules because now the image is not the right one for the track, but I don't think it's such a big deal for a little demo like this. Anyway, but as far as the track itself, I insert the one that I've identified with the IDX parameter because I've saved, say, for We Are the World, I saved that it was index 0, that that's the one that I want to save, and that's not because that wasn't necessarily the most popular one.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else that I've left out here. So thank you very much. It was a very interesting challenge. I enjoyed it a lot.